esteemed participants. With Istanbul Fintech Week, I believe that I'm very, very glad to be a part of it. So I would like to greet you all with respect on behalf of my business. Özgür talked about digitalization and fintech from the insurance perspective, and he talked about the cost side of it, and I would like to bring in the regulation perspective. I would like to also talk about what's on our agenda when it comes to that. Well, actually, because we represent the authority, because Özgür really mentioned the numbers, I'm not going to repeat what he said. In 2022, our industry grew by 23%, so in real terms, it was a massive growth level. And in the last decade, we see that we have not had a problem of growth. Our problem has a penetration problem. So insurance needs to really spread in the base. So we have grown in real terms, but in terms of penetration in the last 2 decades, the growth has been just about 1.2 and 2%. So it's a very narrow ratio. This is very, very low. What about the reasons? Well, number one, maybe you can think of economic reasons, because we might not have, you might think that the economic penetration, but Turkey is a part of the biggest 20 industries. We are in number 38 in terms of insurance industries in the world. And when we think of the purchasing power of people, household economy, and also GDP growth, number one reason behind this small growth is not economy at all. And there was a recent study that was published based on the economic status that we have. Our penetration should be 3%. So it's not the economy. Insurance awareness is the reason. So financial literacy of our population maybe does not really view insurance as a matter of focus, and maybe we're not aware of the risks. Just like Özgür said, insurance is sold, it's not purchased. People do not wake up and say, let me just go and purchase life insurance. They turn that into a reality in terms of buying insurance through loans. So we need to raise the awareness of insuring. And on the financial side, as you can see, with 90%, the banks are dominating the finance industry in Turkey. So there's a massive, massive gap when you think of the capital markets and other financial markets. So insurance industry can actually deepen and expand, create a wave effect in all the other centers. But actually, we cannot explain ourselves that well to the stakeholders and to the politicians. But along with all stakeholders and the media, we need to really express ourselves. But there is a good piece of news, especially with the last 2 decades. The government has pursued an important policy towards developing the insurance industry with DASK and with the Insurance and Private Pension Regulation Board. So there have been certain steps that are taken, but at the same time, within the financial system, I don't think that we're at the place that we deserve. To ensure the stability of the financial system, to ensure sustainability of the economy, that's important. But we at the Supervision Board, our number one goal is to expand the insurance business. We've had a vision declaration. We have not announced it yet, but especially today, when we think of risks that are expanding and diversifying, we're talking about climate crisis, and now aging has become a threat to government. So we define all these risks as Insurance Supervision Board, and we come up with a growth plan to protect the country. So there are so many categories. So financial insurance and participation insurance and elderly people's care and also protection against aging, compensation, and all of that. But our perspective is the following: digitalization and insurtech actually can be a good instrument in terms of our growth in the country. Because when we think of digitalization and insurtech, we are talking about something that you are really, really well aware of. So it affects all businesses. We're not just talking about leveraging the business on a whole level. We're talking about end-to-end change of all kinds of businesses. It changes consumer habits. It diversifies distribution channels. So seen from that perspective, and when we see a bottleneck in our penetration, digitalization offers us a huge, unique opportunity. It's not just about the business model diversification. When we think of Gen Z and their behavioral patterns and their consumption patterns, this is an opportunity that we need to untap. As you know, we are the youngest country in Europe. 65 can be considered is considered elderly, and we have a huge number of people under age 25. That means dynamism. That means demand. So we have a fantastic opportunity. But Gen Z, as you know, uses internet intensively, 95% of them in government policies, all the political party policies. They offer promises of free internet services because that is, of course, the reality of the age. So, in a world where internet is used to that level, when we have so many tech-savvy young people that have so many different habits compared to us, then what we need to do in the industry is the following. So, we need to increase our penetration level. We need to take a leap with that digitalization. We need to change the business models, especially. We need to come up with the right proposition, with the right product. We need to really immerse the Gen Z for hot sales. This is a huge opportunity. We are aware of it. I'm not sure if the industry is really aware of it. Maybe in such kinds of events that will prove beneficial. But there are good news in this regard. There are companies that come to us that define themselves as digital insurance. Turkcell came up with digital insurance recently, and FIBA also does that, and they have their business models that include digital insurance. However, we as the regulatory authority, when we think of digital insurance, do not have the infrastructure yet. So, seen from a larger perspective, what do we see in digital insurance? What kind of a self-criticism can we come up with? Everyone has a different definition. I guess we need to really agree on the definition first. InsurTech, when I discuss with industry stakeholders, mostly this is what they say. Well, paperless work and benefiting from technology. Of course, that is a part of it. It's an important parameter. Özgür talked about cost saving. Yes, it has a huge impact there. It creates a competitive edge. You offer better prices to the customer. But then, what we understand from it is end-to-end proposition to the customer with an embedded business model. We're talking about acquiring customers in that regard. So with this perspective, we have certain companies that come and want to work with us. But here is a problem, and we're aware of it. We are working on problem solving really fast. So companies come to us, and what they do is they want to really settle themselves on conventional legislation. So, here is what I would like to note. Maybe it might be wise to estimate that with legislation and business, there will be a conflict, and they will try to really penetrate the legislation to do their way. We need to really do the right compliance. Our number one priority is to make sure that doesn't happen. So considering the legislation that we have, for digitalization, we only have distance sales regulations. In order to expand that, we need to work on the distribution channels. We need to make sure that they are not intimidated by digitalization. So in so many different channels, they can carry out their business. And as the nature of the job suggests, that's not going to hurt their turnover. We need to make sure they understand that. This kind of piece, this kind of understanding should be explained really well. In the upcoming term, those players should be a part of digitalization, and maybe they should also move towards being more corporate. So, in terms of legislation, we have distance sale regulations, and there's open banking, digital banking, and banking as a service that are in the pipeline. So, open banking maybe later, but digital insurance needs to be defined first, explained really well, and we have already started seeing examples of these business models, so we need to really legislate those. We, the regulators, are focusing on them. So here's what's happening on the regulation side. We've talked about InsurTech as a concept. What do we really mean by it? And we should be in agreement in terms of the definition. InsurTech is a huge opportunity to take a leap, and there's a lot on the shoulders of the private industry. So the private industry should not just think of it as like paperless work, and if they only think of it as a transformation of conventional insurance, I don't think that it's going to leverage what we expect. So we need to maybe work with futurists or startups. Maybe we should capture innovative ideas that are not even a part of our lives today. We are professionals, have certain learned despair, but we need to maybe run after next generation people that are very imaginative, very creative, and we should engage in collaboration with startups. Henry Ford was asked, where did you come up with an idea of a car? Did you poll customers? Well, if you'd asked the customer, they would ask for a faster running horse, he said. Well, okay, we should define tailor-made products, but we should come up with immersive. We should have brand new ideas. That's why we need to change our visionary perspectives in order to go even further. We, as an authority, are ready to create the infrastructure from end to end. From the moment of they take a license to completion of their activities, from their staffing to inspection of their GDPR, all of that are going to be a part of our work. We have already started our activities in that regard, and based on also the needs of the insurance industry, because I think insurance is an important strategic industry. In the last Maraş earthquake, there has been huge damages, and penetration was very, very small. And actually, reinsurance has been activated there, but of course, there are so many people that were not insured. And there's an anticipated earthquake in Istanbul, but we can have only so much state budgeting. That's why we need to really come up with others. For instance, 76 million TL was what we expected in terms of damages. And insurance is a very, very good instrument in terms of coming up with reassuring. I believe that we need to come up with ways to very rapidly grow the industry. Digitalization is a very important instrument in that regard. We are ready to change and improve the infrastructure to serve that purpose.
Well, as long as the private sector pushes us, as long as the private sector undertakes certain efforts, and I hope this organization will contribute to that. And having said that, I'd like to thank you for inviting us and for giving us the chance to share our ideas.